The Treasure Seekers by Thea Stilton, Part 3. Read aloud permission given by Scholastic. Five friends, one idea. The next day was the last of the Thea sisters' vacation in Scotland. Their trip had been amazing, but they were sad, and it wasn't just because they were reluctant to leave Miss Kerr and her wonderful farm. While they were having breakfast, Violet let out a big yawn. You know, last night I dreamed I was flying around the world on a biplane, she said. It was exhilarating. Colette smiled. I dreamed I was traveling by motorcycle while wearing a stylish red helmet. And in my dreams, I was exploring a South African forest where I found an incredible treasure, Pam added as she sipped her cup of tea. It was an enormous chest full of nothing but chocolate. The friends giggled at Pam's tale. Something in Aurora Beatrix's Lane story must have really struck us, Paulina mused. Definitely, Nicky agreed. Aurora was resourceful and gutsy, just like us. And she loved to travel, just like we do, Violet added. It's too bad she never managed to fulfill all her dreams. And it's sad that the Alabaster Garden is destined to remain a mystery. The five friends all stopped eating at the same time. It was one of those moments when, without needing to speak, the five of them knew they had the same idea. Finally, Pam broke the silence. Are the rest of you thinking what I'm thinking? She asked. Let me guess, Colette began with a smile. You're thinking classes at Mouseford Academy don't start right away. So we have time to help Beatrice figure out who stole the tapestry, Nicky continued. And help her find it, Paulina said. Don't forget the Alabaster Garden, Violet added. Maybe we can solve that mystery too. So we all agree, Pam exclaimed. We should postpone our return flights and start investigating. But where do we begin? Paulina asked. Well, the entire story revolves around one person, Violet said. Aurora Beatrix Lane. The others all called out. Violet nodded. I'll do some research on her, she said. Even if she didn't leave official records of her trips, maybe we can find other evidence. Did Beatrice mention the name of the college in England where Aurora studied? Paulina said. She did, Nicky recalled. It was Girton College at the University of Cambridge. Fantastic, Pam exclaimed. All we need to do is pack our bags and go. Well, after we finish breakfast, of course. The five mice burst out laughing. They couldn't wait to start their next adventure. Destination, Cambridge. A few hours later, the Thea sisters were on a train and then a bus to Cambridge. The bus stopped very close to their destination, Girton College. Wow, Paulina exclaimed as she admired the red brick building in front of them. It's amazing to think that Aurora studied right here almost a century ago. Let's head inside, Violet said. I called and made an appointment with the dean. Welcome, the dean greeted them warmly. The Thea sisters explained that they wanted to research a student who had attended the school years ago, and he proved to be very helpful and very chatty. So here's a little information on Cambridge, England. The city of Cambridge is located in England, about 60 miles from London. The famous University of Cambridge is one of the oldest universities, and it attracts visitors and students from all over the world. Many famous people have studied there, including mathematician Isaac Newton, naturalist Charles Darwin, and primatologist Dian Fossey. Back to the story. The dean was very interested in giving the Thea sisters a tour of the college, from the classrooms to the dorm rooms, telling them the history of each place in great detail. Girton College was founded in 1869. It was originally all mouselet school, the dean explained. The typical red brick architecture is thanks to... The friends exchanged worried glances as the dean chattered on and on. He's just like the headmaster, de Mouses, Pam whispered to Violet. When he starts squeaking, he never stops. Meanwhile, the dean hadn't heard a thing. He continued, And now we'll enter the great room, which, as you can see, is a perfect example of Victorian architecture. When the 5 mice stepped into the room, they were squeakless. The shiny wood walls and tall arch-shaped windows made it seem like they'd stepped back in time. Wow, Colette exclaimed. It's so beautiful. Today this room is reserved for events and banquets, the dean continued. Violet stifled a yawn as she tried to figure out a way to politely interrupt the dean. Finally, he stopped for a moment to catch his breath. Colette took advantage of the opportunity and quickly jumped in. Thank you so much for your very interesting explanations, she gussed. We really do need to begin our research. Is it possible for us to consult your oldest archives? Oh, yes, of course, the dean replied. You're looking for information on a student who graduated about 100 years ago, correct? You'll want to try the Central Archive. But what? Colette asked anxiously. I'm afraid it's closed, the dean replied. The friends looked at one another in dismay. Had they come all this way for nothing? Before they could respond, the dean continued. But you can come back tomorrow when it reopens. I have a meeting first thing in the morning, but my assistant will be able to let you into the archive and show you around until I can get there. The 5 mice breathed sighs of relief. Then they quickly thanked him for his help and said goodbye before he had a chance to begin squeaking again. The Thea sisters headed straight to the bed and breakfast where they were staying. They were exhausted from their long day of travel, and they couldn't wait to put their paws up and relax. A search through the past. Rise and shine, Pam, Colette squeaked to her friend the next morning. Pam was still snuggled under the covers in a deep sleep. Huh? She asked groggily as she sat up in bed. Is it morning already? Yes, and we need to get back to the Girton College, Colette replied. Hearing those words, Pam pressed the pillow to her ears. Oh no, she groaned. I don't think I can listen to another one of the dean's long-winded lessons. Her friends laughed. Well, if we get there early enough, he'll still be in his meeting, and we can begin exploring the archive on our own. Remember? Violet asked. You're right, Pam said decisively. She got out of bed and dressed quickly. Let's go then, but let's grab breakfast first. I'm so hungry. After a delicious breakfast of muffins and scones, the Mouselets found themselves at Girton College once more. They stood in front of a door that read Central Archive, but unfortunately, the door was locked, and the dean's assistant was nowhere to be found. Now what do we do? Pam asked. Violet sighed. I guess we'll have to come back later, she squeaked. Just as the Thea sisters turned to leave, 2 blonde ratlets appeared at the end of the hallway. Hello, the first one exclaimed. You 5 are from Mouseford, right? I'm Philip. This is my brother James. Nice to meet you, Colette greeted them. But how do you know who we are? James was the one who shyly explained. The dean spoke to us about you. He asked us to come and let you into the archive. But The dean told us we would be meeting his assistant, Violet replied. Trouble is, she's on vacation, Philip smiled. The dean is a little absent-minded, but don't worry. He realized his mistake last night and asked us to help you. Thanks, that's really kind, Nikki said. It's not a problem, James responded. Sometimes we help organize things in the archive, so we can help you find information you need. A moment later, the Mouselets were in a room full of photographs, computers, and leather-bound books. What are you looking for exactly? Philip asked. We're researching a student named Aurora Beatrix Lane, Paulina explained. She graduated about 100 years ago. Okay, then. We'll need to consult the historic archive and do some cross-referencing, Philip replied. Oh, is that complicated? Colette asked, concerned. A little bit, Philip admitted. But historic research is our specialty, modestly squeaking. No one can top us. James turned a bit red. Philip, don't brag, he scolded in a teasing tone. Then he turned to the Thea sisters. We'll do our best to help. The brothers sat down in front of the two computers and began to type eagerly as the Thea sisters watched, impressed. They searched through pages and pages of results, and in less than 15 minutes, Philip cheered. Found it! He exclaimed. Here's the announcement that went out when she received her degree, along with a photograph. The Thea sisters peered at the screen. There, they saw young Aurora smiling proudly while standing next to a tall, skinny mouse with a serious air. I think that must be, Paulina began. Professor von Klotzwick, Nikki exclaimed. They easily recognized the famous archaeologist who had been Aurora's teacher. Look, Paulina exclaimed, pointing at the image. Aurora is holding a book. It's a journal, exclaimed Colette. See the cover? There's no title, but there are 3 letters, A, B, and L, which stands for Aurora Beatrix Lane, Nikki concluded. As the Thea sisters stared at the photograph, James cleared his throat to get their attention. I've actually seen these initials here at Girton, he said. All 5 friends turned to him at once. You have? Violet asked in disbelief. Please tell us more. The perfect hiding place. You've seen those letters somewhere else here? Where? Nikki asked. It was in the ancient library, right, Philip? James asked his brother. Philip nodded and then turned to the Thea sisters. Come with us, he said. Then he turned around and began walking quickly, followed by his brother. The Thea sisters were a bit surprised, but they followed behind them. Don't you want to tell us more? Colette squeaked between breaths. She was having trouble keeping up with the brothers, who were scampering eagerly down the college's long corridors. Nah, just wait till we get there, Philip replied. It's better if we just show you. Finally, they entered an old room, whose walls were partially lined with shelves full of bound volumes. Large windows let in sun, which lit up the wood floor, the rich, geometrically patterned carpets, and the beautiful stone fireplace. Philip and James headed straight for the fireplace of all things. This is Stanley Library, James explained in a quiet voice. This room and collection dates back to the end of the 1800s. Please, Pam cried, interrupting him. We've gotten enough history lessons yesterday from the dean. James was squeakless for a moment, then laughed. You're right, he said, but you'll want to hear this. You see, we found the initials ABL inside the fireplace. What? Nikki exclaimed in disbelief. You found them in the fireplace?" "That's right," Philip replied as he ducked his head under the fireplace hood. "A few months ago, it was our friend Bradley's birthday. He always plays pranks on us, so we decided that for once, we would play one on him." He paused for a moment. "Now where was it?" Philip mumbled to himself, feeling around inside the fireplace with his paw. "We got him a birthday gift," James continued as Philip searched, "but instead of giving it to him directly, we organized a treasure hunt throughout the college. The idea was for him to follow one clue to the next, eventually finding the gift in a secret hiding spot." "You mean in the fireplace?" Colette asked in surprise. "Exactly," James explained. "And that's where we discovered the initials." "Here they are!" Philip exclaimed suddenly. "Come take a look." The Mouselets knelt down in the fireplace. Nikki slipped in so she could see the place Philip was pointing to. "It's true!" she cried. "I see it!" "Wow," Colette murmured dreamily. "That means Aurora was right here in this fireplace a century ago, carving her initials into the stone." "Yes, but why put her initials inside a fireplace?" Violet asked, puzzled. "It doesn't make sense, unless you're marking something else," Nikki said suddenly. She began to feel around inside the fireplace, near the area with the writing. "Here! There's a spot where the stone is uneven. It's just next to the stone with Aurora's initials. Maybe I need to push or pull." Suddenly, they all heard a little click that echoed through the room. The Thea sisters held their breath as Nikki reached up to investigate. She could feel that a small slab of stone had moved, revealing a tiny opening in the interior wall of the fireplace. She reached her paw in the opening and pulled something out. "What is it?" Pam asked eagerly. "It's Aurora's journal!" Colette squeaked, grinning from ear to ear. Nikki gently removed the small, worn notebook. It had been well preserved inside a metal box, and the friends could clearly read the letters A-B-L on the cover.